Resident Evil 1 was, and still is, a great game. However, the one thing I think everyone can agree on is that the two campaigns, that being Chris and Jill, are basically identical. Sure, you have different supporting characters and different cutscenes, but the playthroughs remain the same. Same puzzles, same enemies, same route through the mansion, same characters dying, etc. It's always been weird how we've never gotten a definitive version of events through game form. Even in the remake, Barry is never in Chris's campaign, and neither is Rebecca and Jill's, but both of them survived the mansion incident. It's not a big deal, but I can't argue with people who have only ever played the one campaign, because really, they aren't missing out on anything. Except Barry. He's a treasure. So if you haven't played Jill's campaign, then go do it. You're missing out, trust me.
It's Forrest. Oh my god.
Anyway, how did its sequel, Resident Evil 2, fare? Was it the same sort of thing? Well, you know it wasn't. That's why you're here. Resident Evil 2 had its fabled zapping system. The game allows you to play either Leon or Claire, and at first glance it looks like it's going to be a similar situation to RE1. Each character's respective A campaigns are actually very much similar with how they start and how they end. Both meet Kendo, both meet Marvin. It's not until a bit later do the campaigns change up, with different areas and slightly different puzzles, but they still fight the same bosses and end up having the same ending, at least on a first playthrough. Once you beat Leon or Claire's campaign, the game will offer you to save. If you accept, you'll be given an entirely new campaign to play, labelled the B scenario. And here is where the zapping system comes into effect. This is Capcom's answer to the criticism of the first RE. Not only does the B scenario have different plot beats and even alternative paths to take, certain actions that you performed in the A run will affect what happens in the B run. Obviously, this is well known now, but this was a major step up compared to its predecessor. And today, I'll be going over every single occurrence of the zapping system that can occur. It's pretty interesting, and there were actually more differences that can occur than I realized. So, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So, if you didn't know, Brad appears at the precinct if you manage to arrive without collecting any items on the way there. Once he appears in Scenario A, he will then appear in Scenario B, regardless if you killed him or not prior. Relating to this, if the character in Scenario A is wearing an alternative costume during the playthrough, in Scenario B, they will be wearing that costume whenever they appear in cutscenes. Too bad the costumes are kinda ugly. Now, this is one of those ones I didn't actually know. If you kill the zombified Marvin in the A scenario, then a regular zombie will take his place on the B run. However, if you left him alive during A, then he'll still be alive when you get to that room on B. I never saw this since I've always killed him, so when I was researching this video and found this out, it was a pretty nice surprise. In the precinct, there are two separate rooms with broken windows. After reaching a certain point in the game, zombies will break through the precinct, flooding these rooms. To prevent this, you can use the cord item in either room. When used during A, this room will remain safe, so when the zombies do eventually break through, they won't enter this specific area. During B, this cord will malfunction, and the zombies will be able to break through though. However, they will only break into this specific room, meaning the other room will now be the one that's safe. Now, you can also not use the cord at all, which means the zombies will break into both rooms, and you can also collect the cord during B if you don't collect it during A and use it then, but it's not worth it at all. This optional room holds two very useful items in the lockers. A submachine gun, which makes the game a cakewalk whilst it still has ammo, and the side pack, which gives your character an additional 2 item spaces. Grabbing either of these items will make them unavailable in the B scenario. Or, you could be greedy and grab both items so the character B gets nothing, or you could be extra nice and not grab either so the character B is packing. The side pack is usually best left for Claire, as she has more item management issues than Leon does, and the submachine gun is great, but lowers your ranking as well and makes the game far too easy. When you encounter the alligator in Scenario A, you can kill him with the random explosive barrel that's placed in the tunnel. Why is it there? How doesn't it cause a cave-in? Anyway, if you kill him this way, he won't appear in Scenario B. Likewise, if you just shoot him enough for him to just leave, he will still appear in Character B scenario, and you'll have to fight him all over again. In the sleeping quarters, you'll come across a vent with vines that really don't like anybody. In Scenario A, if you burn them to get into the next room, they will not be there in Scenario B. Likewise, if you don't burn them in A, they'll still be there in B. So this is the one that I knew about first as a kid. In the sleeping quarters mentioned previously, you can find a computer that can activate the BOW gas. This gas weakens all the monsters in the lab in Scenario A. However, in Scenario B, the Ivies get used to the evil nasty gas and now hate you, making them red and poisonous. If you didn't use the gas in Scenario A, you can still use it in Scenario B. Honestly, it's not really worth using it in A, as it only makes your second campaign harder, and the enemies in the lab aren't all that tough to begin with. But then again, you might not have enough ammo to deal with the Ivies in Scenario A, so there's also that as well. This is the last zapping system in the game, and it is a room that's so hidden and unnecessary that it comes back around to being cool again. To enter this room, character A will need to register their fingerprint in the disgusting moth room. Then, they'll need to get to the B4F door and input their fingerprint. They now cannot do anything more with this room. With Scenario B, you'll need to do the same thing, and then you can enter this mystical room. It has a tune that was left over from RE 1.5 and is only in this room. This room also contains a submachine gun for character B, or if they already have one, an SMG magazine. At the point in time that you can access this room though, there's only 2 bosses left. Still, it's a nice little surprise for exploring and doing everything. And that's it. That's everything the zapping system changes. Now, obviously, I didn't add Scenario B story stuff, such as T-103 stalking you through the entire playthrough, or the entire extra section of the lab that the second character gets to see, because they aren't really zapping related, as nothing character A does affects these things. Also, a lot of the puzzles are nearly identical still, such as the statue puzzle and the waterfall medals, for example. Whilst that's a bit of a letdown, it's not really that big a deal. Still, when you look at this list, you might think that there really isn't a lot that you can change. And maybe you're right, it's mostly just minor things. I still think the fact that they even added something like this is really cool, and definitely makes the A and B scenarios seem more interconnected. Man, imagine what a remake of 2 would do, expanding upon it so that more things that character A does affects B, like more item changes, or even different enemies. Imagine, oh, hang on a minute. We did get a remake with no zapping system. Look, I mean, to be fair, RE2 Remake actually had more development issues than most people are aware of, and the second run scenarios weren't even supposed to be in the game in the first place. So, whilst it is a shame, I do understand the lack of zapping features. At least the second run changed the routing and puzzle solution, so we have that. But hey, the remake is still great, and we still have the original to play when we feel like experiencing these features. I really wish this system would come back in a way though. Code Veronica had something similar, where items left behind by Claire could be picked up by Chris when you switch to him in his section of the game, but it's not the same. Maybe Capcom will revisit a system like this in the future. I hope so. I doubt it, but one can dream. Except Barry. If you haven't played Both Meet a submachine gun, which makes the game a cakewalk whilst it's still